Three, two, one. Welcome, hockey fans, to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I am your host, Trasher. Tonight on our panel, we have Bill Bergler, and Bill Jr., Webb Jr., and we have our special interview guest tonight is Jim Hayes. He's with the Hobey Baker Character Awards. Jim, thanks for being with us and welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. Always love your website. Look at it just about every day during the season.
Awesome. All right. So, would it be fair to say you're the facilitator of the Hobey Baker Award?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm the facilitator. So about 15 years ago, I'm from Minnesota, and I have some friends that run the Hobey Foundation, and they asked if I'd help set this up out here in Wisconsin. About in 2003, 04, they started this award out in Minnesota, and Wisconsin came on about 2 years later. Our first year out here was 05, 06.
Okay. Now, tell us for the people that don't know much about this, what exactly is the Hobey Baker High School Character Award?
It's really built upon the Hobey Baker Award, which started in 1981. So they're almost on their 40-year anniversary for the actual Hobey Baker Memorial Award. And then this extension started in 2003, like I told you. Started out in Minnesota for the first couple of years, and then they expanded it to like the 3Ms, they call it, right? Massachusetts, Michigan. But we were lucky enough to get Wisconsin up on that first run. And since Wisconsin did so great, they really is a big part of it. They expanded it into the other states. So really what it's all about, it's character. Character makes the game better. We always like to kind of highlight the values that we think we should be looking for with this award. It's coachability, strength of character, integrity, commitment, teamwork, big part of that. And then nowadays, boy, when you look at kids and what they have to do in high school and college, it's community leadership and outstanding sportsmanship way beyond just on the rink. So we think it's a fantastic award and something that really you should have further on in your life.
Yeah, and we think the same. So we got your final report. The boys awarded 57 out of 83, which is about 69%. And the girls had an outstanding year, probably their best ever. 23 out of 28 for 82%. I've been looking back at the 4-year averages, and the girls are way over the top on what they had previously done. Boys are about the same, though. How do we compare to like other states?
Yeah, so I usually try to use Minnesota as the guide since they started this thing up. And the last 3 years, they've averaged about 72%. So we're right on track with how Minnesota does it. I would tell you that I've looked at Michigan, Massachusetts, again, that 3M is what they call it. And we outperform those two states by quite a bit. So I'm really proud of what we've done. Again, I think Wisconsin Prep Hockey gives us the best support in the country. I can tell you that for a fact. I've compared it on different websites. There's no better support in the country than Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. I know for my part that I've always said that the award looks good on a college application or a job resume, and I truly believe that.
Yeah, we've had people, in fact, Michael, that played juniors and then had to apply for colleges. And I had, in fact, one person call me and tell me that the thing that made it for this young person, he was applying to Boston College, was the Hobey Character Award. That was the one line that jumped off his resume, and he feels really strongly that was a piece that got him into that university.
That's awesome. I was kind of hoping to hear a story like that. Um, so basically, this is a free award as far as the cost to the schools. Do you guys ever ask the schools and the booster clubs for donations? And if so, do you have like some regular schools that donate? And then are you finding that you have newer ones that are starting to pitch in?
Well, we do ask, I think in the letters that we send out, Michael, and what you publish, we do kind of ask for a donation. We have sponsors and we have some different people that kind of try to donate year to year. But yeah, we asked for it. We probably range about a little over $1,200 in the state of Wisconsin. Not sure how that averages compared to the rest of the country. Do I think we could do more? Maybe a little bit more. We average about 82 awards times $75. So, we always ask, but you can't force people to do it. We love what this award stands for. Um, but anytime we can get any donation, it's a great thing.
And I can tell you a personal story. When my daughter was a senior, there were two seniors on her team, and she was heartbroken that they didn't decide to award both seniors with the award. The other senior was well deserving. She's a great kid, a great person, but Emily was like, it just made her very sad that she didn't get the Hobey Award. So, from my point of view, my perspective, I can say that is something that, as far as I know, the kids would really love to have in their on their resume.
Yeah, I mean, I see what kids have to do and the resumes they have to build these days to get into any kind of university. And even when you look at the teams nowadays in Division III and Division I, the work they're doing off the ice is amazing. It blows me away being a person who graduated back in '84. They're doing things all the time in the community, and I think it's just fantastic.
All right. Pretty much run out of ideas from my point of view. Guys, you got any additional questions? If not, I must have covered it pretty well then.
I think you
Yeah,
did, and Jim, you have to know that once the nominations start in, Michael Trasher does a really good job of trying to coax the coaches into sending in their applications. And there was one day he was missing from the podcast, and we did our best to imitate Michael coaxing the
please,
award.
please help us.
But yeah, it's a great award. It's a great program. We're real happy to be associated, to be part of it. And even if our only part is coaxing the coaches into sending you their submissions, we're happy to do our part.
Yeah, Bill, I think it's great. Sometimes it's just reminders, right? I mean, these coaches are busy. Some of them have full-time jobs, then come to the rink after that. I mean, it's like I've gotten a few notes this week after the deadline saying, wow, I just forgot about it. So, I mean, it's just constant reminders. Everybody's so much busier these days, it seems like, with email and everything else going on. So everything you guys have done has I think, really helped. I'm proud of the way Wisconsin responds to this award.
I'm going to get myself in trouble here. Like you said, some of them have full-time jobs and the rest of them are just teachers.
Ooh.
I have two of those. I have two of those in my family. We kind of talk the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Jim, thank you very much for offering this wonderful award. We know that you're a big part of it. You do a lot of work on your end. We try to help out as much as we can, and the end result is a bunch of wonderful kids get an award that they deserve that'll help them out in the future. So thanks again, and we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks so much, guys, for everything you do.
All right, Jim Hayes, facilitator of the Hobey Baker Award. Thanks for being with us. You have a great evening.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Thank you.
And before you send your hate mail, that was just a bad joke about I have nothing but respect for teachers. We have teachers in our family, and we respect what they do and what all the teachers do. It was just a cheap shot. So if you have any objections, send your email to Trasher at Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
I was about to say, what
Sure.
teachers do we have in our family? But I remembered your sister's a teacher. Her daughter's a school counselor. Your niece, my cousin, is a teacher. Her brother's a teacher. So yes, we do have teachers in our family.
Yes, we do.
I was gonna. My immediate thought was, what teachers are in our family? I was wrong.
There are several.
All right. All right. Before we go completely off the rails, as MJ would say, let's get to our games of the week. We got a couple games. Webb Jr. and Burglar are both reporting from these games. Let's go to the girls' games first. Metro Lynx at Central Wisconsin. Webb Jr., what do you got for us?
Yeah, Burglar and I made the 11-minute trek over to Greenheck Fieldhouse on Saturday in the morning. Game started at noon. And arrived to a packed parking lot, which is sort of an event for a girls' hockey game. But that's not what the parking lot was packed for. The Wausau Antique Show and Sale was taking place at Greenheck. But we decided to go to the hockey game anyway. The teams, fifth-ranked Metro Lynx, top-ranked Storm coming in, played pretty uneventful first 9.5 minutes or so of the game. It was not really much happening before Sydney Raths took a pass from Rachel Meerwald and came in on basically a 1-on-3. And from the hash marks, fired a shot low on the ice, snuck inside, just inside the glove side post, past Sydney Weiland, the Storm goalie. And I think that was the Lynx's first shot of the game. Happened to be a goal for Raths. Raths would strike again just a couple of minutes later. After some nice D-to-D passing in the neutral zone, sort of sucked all the Storm forwards and their defensemen over to one side of that big sheet of ice at Greenheck. Lauren Johnson and Grace Bonnell were passing the puck back and forth there on the D. They got it up to Raths, who was wide open behind the defense after they all got sucked forward, and she just walked in all alone, making it a quick 2-0 game for the Lynx. The Lynx, much to the chagrin of the crowd, would actually extend it to 3-0 just a minute into the second period. Eden Gruber went to the box for the Storm with I believe a slashing penalty 12 seconds into the second period. Meerwald, who had the assist on the first goal, ended up scoring on the power play to make it 3-0 Lynx. It took about 5 minutes before the Storm came thundering back. 2 goals of their own, both of them by Lauren Ellis. The first on the power play. Nice deep passing between Maddie Federici and Chalice Prohaska. Federici put the shot in on net. The Storm picked up probably their first rebound of the game. And Ellis put it into the back of the net to make it 3-1. She scored again just a minute, 10 seconds later. She took a nice feed from behind the net from Hannah Bauman and knocked it in all alone on the far side corner, but that was it for the Storm. The Lynx managed one more power play goal in the third period. And this game was really, as far as the Storm, I think this is the fourth time I've seen them this season. Really indicative of the way they've played so far this year, where they don't do a great job of getting the puck to the net. Because if you look at possession time and time in the offensive zone, I think the Storm really commanded most of this game, but 2 quick rushes and 2 power plays, and the Lynx have a 4-2 win out of it. The Storm, their only real goal scoring in the games I've seen so far this year is throw the puck at the net and hope you get a rebound. There were several times where their forwards made nice moves to get around a defenseman and didn't even manage to get a shot off, coming in 2-on-1, 3-on-2, sometimes 1-on-1. They'd get around that defenseman and then the puck would just get away. They wouldn't even get a shot off. So their offense, I think, is letting them down a little bit in these big games that I've watched them play so far this year.
And I agree that has been the offensive strategy of the Storm, not just since Pete Susans took over, but even before that. They didn't really have the offensive stars, the Teresa Knutson, or that can dangle through. Their strategy's always been get players in front of the net and then get the puck to the front of the net. And what they're missing this year is that part about getting the puck out there to the front of the net, getting shots on goal and then getting tips, screens, rebounds, and all that kind of stuff. What I was impressed with in this game was the Metro Lynx there. It seemed to me like their strongest players seem to be like their defenders, and they like to jump up into the rush. They like to handle the puck, and they would pass the puck back and forth. And when they did that, the forwards would be constantly moving, cutting across, cutting across from one side of the ice to the other, trying to open up passing lanes. And like Bill said, that second goal was a perfect example of that, of the Lynx, defenders, handling the puck and waiting for something to open up in front of them. And when it did, it was a beautiful pass from number 9, what he said to what was her name?
9 is Grace
Anyway,
Bunnell. The
yeah,
goal
so
scorer was Sydney
beautiful
Ratz.
pass. He just threaded the needle to hit Ratz, and she was just like gone. Just beautiful passing. Just they did a really nice job of patiently handling the puck, and the forwards constantly moving, trying to get open, and then just attacking that way. It was a fun game to watch.
I think one of the things that has hurt the Storm this year is they were out without Eden Gruber for the majority of the season. She missed like 16 games. She's only played, I believe, in 5. She was a big part of their scoring last year. I mean, she wasn't a Teresa Knutson or Jason Reeves, but, a few kids are. But she was, 15, 20 goal scorer, I believe, or thereabouts. And to have her missing, 3/4 of the season, that hurts. And she's back, but I don't think she's at full speed yet. And
No,
maybe toward the end of the year here.
I was watching her, and she did sail a couple of shots high over the net. Nice hard shots, but her shifts were still pretty short. She's only, I think this was her 4th game of the season. So yeah, she's still working her way back. That's not good news for everybody who played close games against the Storm coming in, because by the time playoffs starts, that 3 or 4 games she's played becomes 6 or 7.
All right, let's go to the boys' game of the week. And Burglar went across town to Marathon Park to watch Hudson take on Wausau West. Burglar?
Yes, I switched roles. In the first game, the Central Wisconsin Storm game, I played the role of photographer while Bill, watched the game and wrote it up and took notes. In this game, the other son, Bob, came as the photographer, and I got to watch the game and take notes and write up the story. So if you were to go and look at the pictures of the Central Wisconsin Storm game and the Wausau West game, you will see much better pictures at the at the Wausau West game. And if you were to read the articles, you read a much better article at the Central Wisconsin Storm game. So anyway, yes, Hudson made their first trip across Highway 53 this season. They apparently they don't like to come over. Why would you? I mean, their conference, the Big Rivers Conference, they go as far as Eau Claire North, Eau Claire Memorial. And then you got Rice Lake along Highway 53 there. And then for their non-conference games, I mean, you've got a host of schools, Amory, Somerset, New Richmond, all that right over there. And then you cross the border over into Minnesota. Hockey it's a school sport. You play on school nights. Why drive way over here when you've got all those teams right over there to play? But they came over and played Wausau West, and it was a good game. They came out. They scored first. I think it was probably on their first shot of the game. Shot that was rung off the post. The Wausau goaltender Kyler Bosley. I don't think he saw the shot. He heard it hit the post. He didn't see where the rebound came out. It was right in front of the net. Uncharacteristically, there were no Wausau West players there to clear the rebound, and Hudson got it and put it in for first goal just a minute 55 into the game. And they kind of controlled things after that. They built up their lead. Or they scored another. West came back, made it 2-1 in the second period. Then again, Hudson controlled play most of the first and second period. the shots on goal turned towards Wausau West's favor in the third period, and I think the referees had a little bit to do with that. I was situated behind the Hudson fans, and there were, certain chants of, homers and this, how opposing fans tend to view the officials. But yeah, there were like 3 or 4 penalties called in rapid succession on Hudson, that gave Wausau a shot advantage in that third period. But Hudson came over and looked good. Again, there were a couple players that just stood out in that game. I mean, one for Wausau, Mark Sipple. He's their captain. We've heard about him. In fact, there was actually a story on the news last week about Mark Sipple on National Signing Day, where he actually signed to play football at Michigan Tech. Apparently, he's a good football player too. I didn't look up what position he plays, but he picked Michigan Tech. Apparently, he had a couple of Big Ten teams looking at him, but he wants to study engineering at Michigan Tech, and good for him. And that's where he's going to go. And the player on Hudson that stood out to me was a defenseman, Max Giblin, who I believe is just a sophomore. And I was talking to my son Bob, who was taking pictures, and he doesn't really get to watch the game much because that's why he's a better photographer than there are a lot of reasons why he's a better photographer than I am, but he's not watching the game. He's just looking for picture opportunities, and so he doesn't really see who's doing what. And when I mentioned to him, although there's one defenseman from Hudson, number 2, and was he the guy who was always streaking back and forth? I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, I heard even the guys on his team were talking about him. I mean, this kid is just fast. Pick up the puck behind his net, and he is just gone. He's just a sophomore. I am sure we will be hearing more about him in the next couple of years. But yeah, those are 2 guys I enjoyed watching in that game. And let's say it'll be interesting. It looked at it, could possibly be a preview of the Section 1, Division 1 sectional final.
Yeah, I think they were playing for that top seed. I don't think at this point in the season there was any question that the winner of this game was going to be the top seed in that section.
And well, there was a lot of discussion about that in the stands too. And the top seed, but does it really matter? The sectional final is set. It's going to be at neutral ice. It's going to be at Wisconsin Rapids. So you're talking about, the top seed versus second seed. You get either 3 or either 4. And what is that now? That's Chippewa Falls or Onalaska, I think, 3 and 4. If the brackets hold, does it really matter? Chippewa Falls, Onalaska, they're pretty even, So I don't think
Man,
like Wausau West, they had their goalie rotation. They stuck with that. They didn't do anything special for this game. It's like it's just a game.
Well, I think that as far as that goes, BJ pretty much during the regular season will rotate his goalies, find the hot goalie, and then during playoffs and state, we'll probably stick with him. One interesting thing that I found about Hudson, they've been very, very successful for a long time. They started the season 4-3, but after Christmas they are 13-1. So when you're talking about peaking at the right time, early February is a good time to be peaking for Wisconsin high school hockey, guys. All right, let's move on to the next item on our agenda, and that would be my item, the Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg Players O the Week. The Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg is the state tournament headquarters for Wisconsin prep hockey. Last year was our first year there. Apparently we didn't do anything terrible, so they invited us back, and we really appreciate that. Let's start on the girls' side, and our player of the week is Haley Frank, netminder from Chippewa Falls, Menominee. On Tuesday, she had 35 saves, allowed 3 goals, in a 3-2 loss to Hudson. On Thursday, 25 saves, 2 goals allowed, in a 3-2 win over Western Wisconsin in, as Webb Jr. would say, extra innings. Thing in baseball again, catchers and pitchers report on Wednesday. And on Friday, 39 saves, 1 goal allowed, 2-1 win over Northern Pines, also in OT. So on the week, 105 shots, 99 saves for a 943 save percentage, which isn't too darn shabby, and a 189 goals against. So Haley Frank, Chippewa Falls Menominee, is our girls' player of the week. On the boys' side, also a Chippewa Falls player, Isaac Lindstrom, a forward for Chippewa Falls Cardinals. On Tuesday, he scored 4 times in a 5-3 win over Eau Claire Memorial. And on Saturday, he scored once and had an assist in a 4-3 win over Hayward. So he was very instrumental in the goal scoring in 2 close games, and that is what gave him the Player of the Week nod. Isaac Lindstrom, Chippewa Falls, the boys' Player of the Week, the Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg Player of the Week, guys.
And you know why the Wyndham Garden Inn is the official state tournament headquarters of Wisconsin prep hockey.
Because they haven't banned you yet?
That and their location, just off whatever road it is that goes by there, right by the Great Dane, there in Fitchburg. Wonderful location, close to the rink. If you're looking for a place to stay in the Madison area for the state tournament, you couldn't do better than the Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg.
And when I was putting together the show notes, I noticed, Mr. Isaac Lidstrom, 47 points for Chippewa Falls this year. His line partner, Isaac Frenette, also has 47 points this year. So, 2 Isaacs there for Chippewa Falls at 47 points each.
I think that's the first.
Yeah.
Ike line is going crazy.
Yes.
All right. That brings us to the top 6s, or as we sometimes call it, the top 18.
I
prefer the top 4.24 squared.
I prefer the 6-packs, but that's because I have a problem.
All right. Just like the Big 10 is actually the Big 12, we have 14. The top 6s, or 14, whatever it is. Webb Jr., go for it. It's all yours.
Sure. In the girls, Eau Claire area Stars move up to number 1. Madison Metro Lynx are 2nd, and the Central Wisconsin Storm dropped all the way to 3rd. The Cap City Cougars are 4th, the St. Croix Valley Fusion are 5th, and the Fox City Stars are 6th. As of the last update I had, the top-ranked Stars and third-ranked Storm are currently in a 2-1 game in the 3rd period, with the Stars currently leading. Division 2, Fond du Lac Springs is number 1, Northland Pines is number 2, Hayward is 3rd, Waupun is 4th, Waunakee is 5th, and McFarland is 6th. I believe that is a repeat of last week. And in Division 1, Notre Dame Academy is 1st, Hudson moves up to 2nd, Arrowhead moves up to 3rd, Wausau West drops down to 4th, Verona is 5th, University School is 6th, and Chippewa Falls is an honorable mention.
All right. The top 6s have been fairly stable throughout the year. There's been a little movement up and down in all 3, but it just seems kind of, I don't know about odd or funny or strange that there doesn't seem to be a lot of teams outside the top 6 infiltrating into that space of the top half dozen teams.
Well, on the girls' side has been a little more volatile than the boys have been. There are those 6 that constantly seem to be beating each other, and there are a couple other teams just outside of the top 6 that have also, done their share of beating those top teams. And I don't know if we normally would have gotten into it because the sectional seating was just announced yesterday, and I don't know if we're gonna. I think we were gonna cover that at all tonight, but well, let's finish up this first, then we can talk about that later.
I think one of the unintended consequences of moving to a top 6 from a top 10 is that the top half of our top 10s in the past saw less movement than the bottom half did. Coaches and the whip staff, we were all more sure of those first 4 to 6 teams on the rankings. Like, you might have had them in a different order, but pretty much all the voters had that same group of teams. And by switching from 10 to 4, it's those positions that people were questioning that sort of got eliminated from the bracket. So now we see less change in the bracket week to week. And there are times where, it doesn't matter how many coaches vote, we seem to get the same 6 teams just in a different configuration across all the ballots. So I don't know if that's something we'll want to look at later or not, but it is happening.
And something of note is that the only section or division that we actually have an honorable mention is D1 boys, because there is 51 teams versus 32 and 28 on the D2 and the girls side. So no honorable mentions for the girls or D2. The D1 honorable mentions for anybody that gets votes. So you can see that there's 7 teams in D1 that got votes this week. And Chip Falls, I mean, with Lindstrom, got up there, and so they're honorable mention. All right, so upcoming games of the week on the boys' side. On Friday will be West Salem at Wisconsin Rapids, and the storyline there kind of is a return, not the return, of former Rapids star Eric Borey coaching West Salem to Wisconsin Rapids. There's a 4-team tournament. Monona Grove and Fond du Lac are also involved in that. I will cover that game. And Burglar will go up to Antigo and cover the Chippewa Falls Menominee at Northern Edge game. So those will be our games of the week for this week. All right, gentlemen, we're to the final thoughts section. Webb Jr. and I I texted him and wondered if we should maybe touch on the seedings a little bit in the brackets. You guys up for that?
I think we have to. I mean, I don't think we have to go full in depth like we should probably do something for that next week, but we should at least mention it.
All right. I don't know. One of you guys have probably been more into this than I have. I actually had to work today. You guys were working from home. It's
like that full-time job.
Well, yeah. I know it kind of sucks. My boss frowns on it when I start.
Full-time job, but I still managed to get the sectional brackets up there somehow miraculously.
Yeah, unfortunately, my boss is at my desk half the time looking over my shoulder, and when he sees WIPH up, he's not too happy. So why don't you guys lead on this one? You've looked into it a little bit more than I have, and I can kind of pitch in where I can.
Well, the first thing I want to do is, reinforce our displeasure with the WIAA's process, because as I'm entering the brackets, I'm creating each bracket. For each of the girls' brackets, 7 teams. Each one, 7 teams. Division 2 boys, 8 teams. Division 1 boys, either 12 or 13 teams. Yet, each one only has 1 representative at the state tournament. When the Wisconsin High School Hockey Coaches Association went to the WIAA with this proposal for a second division, it was to get more teams at the state tournament, not just to have different teams at the state tournament. I mean, 7 teams per bracket, 8 teams per bracket, and 12 or 13 teams per bracket. Something's not right in that scenario.
Wasn't 12 and 13 the number that they had before they switched to 2 divisions?
No, I think it was more like 10 or 11. And there might have been an occasional 12. They all kind of flip-flopped a little bit.
The
as
brackets
far-
the brackets are
time-
bigger, making it even
At
harder
one
to get
time
in.
it was. At one
Yeah.
time it was like 12 or 13.
Yeah, I think last year was like 84 or 85 or 86 teams. So, I mean, you're talking, whatever, but they're,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mathematically, it is harder for a D1 team to get to the state tournament now than it was before.
Yes. And that was not the intention of the Hockey Coaches Association. They wanted to create opportunities for the smaller schools. They didn't necessarily want to limit opportunities for the larger schools.
Right, and I think the original thought was 8 and 4,
Yes.
D1 versus D2,
Yes.
and actually,
Well, that's the thought
the
that makes sense.
yes, and the email or text that I saw said, yeah, it's going to be 8 and 4, and then like half an hour later it said, oh no, it's going to be 4 and 4, and I'm like, well, we really didn't gain anything. We just changed the composition of the state tournament. I mean, it'll allow some teams that haven't played there or haven't played there very frequently to get in, but now your teams in the D1 division are kind of screwed because was it sectional 1? Basically, there's probably 5 teams that legitimately could make state tournament. Only one of them is going to make it this year.
Yeah, I mean in that section, more often than not, Wausau West, Hudson, Eau Claire Memorial, Spash, and Onalaska are state tournament challengers. DC Everest made it just a couple years ago, so they're there. Eau Claire North made it just last year, I think. So they're in there again. You're looking 7 teams deep now at teams that have been at the very least sectional finalists in the last couple of years.
Wait. No, I'm just that those 4 that you named. I mean, did we not have a state tournament recently that had Wausau West, Eau Claire Memorial, Hudson, and Onalaska all in the same state tournament?
I assume we did.
Because Onalaska made it. It wasn't that many years ago. And it was either Hudson or Superior and probably Eau Claire Memorial and probably Wausau West. So that's like half of the state tournament from, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago. Half of the state tournament is now in one section.
It's better now.
Why? Why?
For the simple reason that it pisses you off. That's why it's better. Sorry, Bill. Just kidding.
Yeah.
You know I love you.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That.
I don't get it.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, let's just touch on the top seeds for now.
All right.
On the girls, Section 1, Eau Claire Area Stars. Section 2, Central Wisconsin Storm. Section 3, Metro Lynx. Section 4, Rock County Fury. I mean, there's no argument there. If all of those 4 teams made it to state, that would make for a good state tournament, right, guys?
I would hope so if all the number 1 seeds make it to the tournament.
I guess my point is there's no weak sisters in that group, for sure.
No, those are all strong teams.
They've
all received top 6 votes. The Fury, I don't think have cracked it more than once, but I know I've seen votes for the Fury. I know they've beaten. I think they beat the Lynx at some point.
All right, and boys Division 1, since I'm going down the list here. Section 1, Hudson. Section 2, Notre Dame. Section 3, Verona. Section 4, the only undefeated team, that means no losses, they have a couple ties, Arrowhead. I mean, still a pretty good representation of teams here. I mean, not to say that they're going to be the four that go, but um, four pretty strong teams.
Yep, four strong teams, and coming into this season, I had questions about Section 4. Because Arrowhead is never a bad team, but they're not always a great team. So I didn't know if there was, because we knew you coming in USM was going to be great this year. We knew who was coming back. We knew they were going to be an excellent team again this year. We didn't know that Arrowhead was, and I was worried coming in that USM was not going to have a lot of challenge in that section. But Arrowhead Arrowhead stepped up.
Yeah, and got the number 1 seed. So yeah, USM, they're gonna have that's gonna be a good section.
Yeah, USM has had their struggles this year. They came in as the state champion. They're ranked number 1 coming into the preseason. Ethan Mann, I think, has been a huge problem because he is out, all year with an injury, and that's a big part of their scoring, and I think that's hurt them a little bit. They've still been a very solid team, and I think they definitely want to defend their title. So Arrowhead, um, probably not over yet, right, guys?
Well, yeah, and even like Section 3, I mean, Verona, the clear favorite. They've been in our top 6, but I mean, Madison Edgewood, Sun Prairie, and Sauk Prairie, I mean, those are all strong teams that, under the right circumstances, I can see any of them, challenging there also.
All right, let's go to Boys Division 2. Number 1 seeds we're talking about here. Section 1, Amory. Section 2, Northern Pines. Section 3, Baldwin Woodville. And Section 4, St. Mary's Springs. I think we would probably all agree that the Pines Eagles and St. Mary's Springs Ledgers are probably the 2 favorite teams among this foursome. Amory's been in our top 6 throughout the year. Baldwin Woodville kind of sneaking up. They've had some success in the past. Any surprise that they're the number 1 seed in Section 3, Burglar?
Not when you look at the other teams in that section. No, that's the in the previous bracket that was Section 4. That Madison Memorial under Vic Levine used to own, and then he transferred his title to Wisconsin Rapids, and when they lost it, it just kind of became a toss up there. But there always seems to be one sectional that doesn't have that clear cut favorite in it, and that's the one this year. But the thing that stands out to me is when we looked at the beginning of the season with the 2 divisions, and Superior just let the chips fall where they may, and Superior ends up in Division 2, and they end up now they're as the 3rd seeded team in Division 2 Section 1. So they're not even the favorite to come out of that section in Division 2.
Yeah, if you look at just the record, and I mean, you can throw Superior's record out the window because I mean, I think one year they won the state title. They finished 13-13. So throw their record out the window because they play a lot of tough Minnesota teams, and but this year, I mean, it's not a great record, and I'm sure they would be the first to claim that. So for them to be a 3 seed, yeah, maybe a little bit of a surprise, but the one that I see as kind of a surprise is in Boys Division 1, Section 1, perennial powerhouses, Wisconsin Rapids and Stevens Point. Well, Rapids not so much this year, the last couple of years, but they have been near the top of the heap in the Valley Conference, are 8 and 9 seeds this year in their sectional 1. So
Spash is schizophrenic. I have no idea what is going on with that team. They took 3 straight losses earlier in the season to teams that you would not expect Spash to take 3 straight losses to. if I can get that back up. I believe it was Mosinee, Waupun, and TC Everest. Yes, just not in that order. Took 3 straight losses. Then they went and beat Northland Pines. So like, okay, maybe that was just a blip. And then they play a game against Notre Dame Academy where Notre Dame didn't get the go-ahead goal until there was like 2 minutes left in the game. It ended up being 6-4 with an empty netter. And then 5-2 against a Verona team that's in the top 6. But I don't know. Spash is all over the place this year. I think they're hard to predict. I don't know. Burglar and I were talking about this. They might be a young team, which does explain some of that. I haven't looked at their roster since we had that conversation, but they're just all over the place this year. Very inconsistent.
And I don't mean to pile on Superior, because obviously I am a loyal graduate of Superior Senior High School, class of '76. Woo! But you can't just throw out their record because they play a lot of tough Minnesota schools. Because, quite frankly, the tougher Minnesota schools aren't on their schedule anymore. They do play Hermantown. They play Duluth East, I think tomorrow. But they have losses to Eau Claire Memorial. They have losses to Hudson. They got beat by Chippewa Falls. They beat New Richmond. They got beat by Wausau West. They got beat by Eau Claire Memorial again. They lost to Stevens Point. They tied Baldwin Woodville, who I just disparaged a few minutes ago. They lost to Hudson 7-1. They lost to Pines last week 8-1. They lost to Hayward 3-0. So you can't just discount their record, because they play more than half their games now against Wisconsin teams and have not fared all that well.
And I looked this up the other day because I was interested. I look this up every few years. I looked at the ranked teams in Division 1 and Division 2 in Minnesota, and to date they had like 4 games against Wisconsin total. 0 for the Division 1 Minnesota teams and 4 for the Division 2 teams. So like if you're looking at the top end Minnesota teams, they didn't play Wisconsin this year, so you can't just automatically throw them out, because looking at the rankings and the records and the head-to-head over the last several years, what is Wisconsin's Division 1 compares favorably to Minnesota's Division 2. Our top end and their top end in D2, they compare favorably. We don't have teams, I don't think so, that would do well in Minnesota's D1 state tournament. You feel free to disagree with me. I think we have players who could play in the Minnesota D1 state tournament, but we don't have teams that could do it.
Well, no, I mean, the whole Minnesota thing devolved a long time ago when, they went to a true open enrollment. Wisconsin has limited open enrollment where you can't transfer. If you transfer to a different school, you have to, Minnesota has true open enrollment, and the reason that Duluth East is always one of the top teams in Minnesota is not because the east side of Duluth has this great hotbed of hockey players. It's just like, if you're a good hockey player, you end up going to school at Duluth East. It's call it recruiting, call it trying to gain exposure for your kid. The top programs in Minnesota tend to stay the top programs. They either attract or recruit the top players, so it stays that way.
And I do have some
that even crept down into the so-called Division 2, like in the Duluth area.
Hermantown dominates.
Hermantown, or Duluth, have they taken over for Duluth Marshall? It was Duluth Marshall for a long time.
Hermantown's done really well the last several years.
Apparently not in Division 2. So apparently now they've gone from probably cheaper to go to Duluth Marshall than, or Hermantown, that's a public school, than Duluth Marshall. You got to pay your private school thing. So,
I've driven through Hermantown enough to know that there's not enough people in that town to field a hockey team with people that live there. I mean, it's on the way up to Grandma's house. It's not a big town, so they've got to be coming from somewhere.
No, I mean they have the mall and they have the air base and stuff, but neither one of those produces hockey players.
Right.
So yes, you establish your program, you attract the players. So
And I do
it's
have
not the same.
I do have some breaking news if you want to revote on the girls' top 10. The Central Wisconsin Storm, who cannot score goals, are currently up 5-2 on the Eau Claire area Stars.
No, we earlier said how they don't do that.
Yeah. They were down 2-1 going into the third period. And suddenly it's 5-2. I don't know what happened, but
I'm guessing that Eau Claire prematurely pulled their goalie for an extra attacker, and Central Wisconsin made some long, empty net shots from their own zone.
So
I'm sticking with that.
Okay. I have a question because I believe this in Minnesota I'm talking about now. Eighth graders can play on a varsity team. Is that correct? Or is that just in certain sports?
I don't know.
Because I believe in girls hockey, eighth graders can play on varsity. So girls can actually play 5 years on a varsity team. Just wondering if that's true on the boys' side, and if you have, a phenom, so to speak, is that kind of an advantage over Wisconsin, where they can only play 4 years on the varsity team?
I don't think that's a significant thing where that's going to be an advantage.
Isn't an eighth grader like a first-year bantam?
I think so, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen stories where they talk about, they made the varsity as an eighth grader. And I mean, is that actually an advantage? That this young 14-year-old or 13-year-old is now playing against 17 and 18-year-olds? I mean, does it help their development, or, because they
Well,
always say,
it's gonna depend on the kid. It can go either way. Some kids thrive under that kind of pressure and that kind of exposure, and some kids crumble.
yeah, and I would agree with that. The common theory is that, if you play against better competition, you're going to become a better player. So, guess it just depends. All right, gentlemen. I think that's about all we got tonight. God knows we've blathered on long enough. Hopefully, you still dig us. We try our best, even without MJ and Dell tonight. They're off on special assignment. Hopefully, MJ is.
Hopefully, his special assignment will end soon.
Well, MJ is throwing a wild party for the Janesville Bluebirds hockey team because they're like breaking the TV in his house, and
apparently they're trashing his family room.
Yes. So.
All right. So parents of the players, feel free to pitch in to help MJ get a new TV.
There'll be a GoFundMe link in the show notes.
Yeah, there very well might be. All right. So you can subscribe to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or wherever fine podcasts are sold. You can also watch us record the show live on YouTube.
Although I don't know why you would want to.
Well, I mean, we try. One day we'll become rich and famous.
And whatever those fools from Fond du Lac did last week.
Or maybe not. So, speaking for Burglar, the founder of Wisconsin Prep Hockey, Webb Jr., the scion of the founder of Wisconsin Prep Hockey, and co-founder Trasher, we bid you a good night and thanks for watching. Have a great week and catch us next week again on Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
Okay. You need my recording, Bill?
Yep.
Oh, I'm supposed to shut up for 30 seconds.